later. They're week 8 here, whatever it is.
Lovely. Are you based on aircraft?
No. Oh yeah, but we've actually checked out.
Okay.
It was, yeah. The guys who were doing it walked off the site last summer. I'd say it was a stressful time for whoever in the city court. We got a corporation who was supposed to be managing it.
There's always that kind of being provided changes.
Yeah, yes.
That's really nice.
Yeah, why were they trying to know?
We're in the last, say, year and a half, and now you're like one of the biggest seller you raised for your career. I think it is. Yeah. So because you're doing to do with tourism. You've got to hear it all. Up to 12 squares. There will be this
Good morning. Good morning. Tánaiste, ladies and gentlemen, marketing colleagues. As Chairman of the Marketing Institute, I want to welcome you all to the 27th National Marketing Conference. Most especially, I want to welcome our distinguished guest, Tánaiste Minister for Health, Mary Harney, who's taken time out of her busy schedule to officially open the event today. I think it's most appropriate that you are here, Tánaiste, because in your previous role as Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, you initiated the Enterprise Strategy Group, and its report, Ahead of the Curve, highlighted the critical strategic role the marketing profession needs to play in Ireland's ongoing economic success. One of the key themes of that report was the fact that we need to develop and strengthen the infrastructure around marketing. And today's conference is one small example of how the Marketing Institute consistently focus on continuous professional development and in some small way goes to implement some of the proposals from your report. So we're delighted to have you here and thank you for coming along. Every year a group of people get together at the Marketing Institute and decide what are we going to have the conference about, what's the theme. This year we decided to start off with our own customers, our members, you. And last September, we asked our members, what do you want your conference to be about? The response was music to our ears. There was a real request to focus on how to increase the effectiveness of our marketing mix and how to increase the efficiency of our marketing budgets. The areas of particular interest were how to launch brands in tight budgets, how to rejuvenate brands, how to actually create value, quantifiable value from sponsorship, how to use technology to increase our effectiveness in our marketing mix, and what are the trends that will actually affect us in the next 12 months. We're going to cover these topics and many more, but a conference is not just about the topics, it's about the speakers, and I know you'll agree, and I think you've voted with your feet in your pockets. Our lineup today is fantastic. I've known the lineup for 5 months and I'm still excited about what I'm going to learn from each and every one of them. We chose our speakers based on 2 criteria. One, that they themselves create success in the marketplace, and secondly, that they're relevant to our market. I've got one point to say for the members of the Marketing Institute in the room. I'm glad to say we are launching a new initiative this week. It's called Marketing Frontline. We're launching it in conjunction with Amoric Consulting. It's an online research panel, the information of which you can find at the Marketing Institute stand, and I would really urge all the members to join it. It will give our profession a voice on relevant topics on an ongoing basis. Finally, I want to thank our sponsors. Events like these need sponsors. Particularly, I want to thank our main sponsor, AFA O'Mara, who've been so cooperative and have had such a fantastic attitude towards the conference over the last 3 months. I also want to thank our other sponsors, RTE, Tourism West, Irish International Print, who have all contributed so much. And I think these sponsors deserve our thanks and credit because they're putting their money into the health of their profession, your profession. I also want to thank Print and Display for their professional and generous help in setting up our stages over the last few days. Finally, I want to thank you. This conference is about you, it's for you. You've turned up in huge numbers, and it's our intention now to ensure that you leave this afternoon feeling a real sense of getting value for money, but also getting some insight or some inspiration or some knowledge that will affect your personal business and your personal career. So thanks very much for coming, and without further ado, I want to hand over to An Tánaiste, Minister for Health, Mary Harney. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Damien, and it's a pleasure to be here this morning to open this conference, the 27th conference, and I'm delighted to see so many people present, and particularly so many young people, because I think, as Damien said, ahead of the curve, the enterprise strategy document that the group that I put together to devise an enterprise strategy for Ireland placed a very heavy emphasis on the need for greater marketing and sales capability. It is a fact in Ireland that we have become very successful at making the products or supplying the services innovated by others. And the challenge for the future, in order to remain successful in a never more competitive global marketplace, is obviously to be more innovative, to dwell more on research and development and innovation on the one hand, but secondly to develop marketing and capability strengths. And the report was very strong on that, and it went on to make the point that we weren't good at knowing the marketplace, knowing the customers and responding to their needs. And therefore there's a great opportunity, both from a career perspective in Ireland, but also from an enterprise perspective, to reflect on those recommendations, because I think they will play a very large part in our success in the future. You have lined up an excellent panel of speakers, and I was very taken just meeting Dan German, who established a company when he was still a student, known as Innocent, an interesting name, and it's now the fastest growing food and drink company in the UK. And I noticed one of the lines in the little introduction to him on the brochure says that he's going to talk about how to get noticed without spending a lot of money. And certainly, speaking from a political perspective, that's what we try to do all the time. And getting noticed is sometimes a good thing, and maybe on other occasions it's not so good. But perhaps one of the keys to success of any company is having a good idea and being able to see it through. And I suppose the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody that maybe has the good idea is somebody that can take the good idea from the laboratory or from concept and take it into a successful market product. And one of the most successful Irish enterprises, I think, in recent years has been Bailey's. Bailey's was a simple idea at one level. Initially, Bailey's was seen as the drink for granny, but the marketing guy that decided that with a little bit of ice, Bailey's would be a trendy cool drink, took Bailey's from being perhaps a small enterprise to being one of the world's most successful drink products launched in recent times. And I remember in my last job being in very small places like the Solomon Islands, I remember, and there on the shelf, when there weren't a huge number of drinks, but there I saw a bottle of Bailey's Irish Cream. And it has been an incredible success story. So the good idea is clearly important, but having the wherewithal to convert the good idea into something that consumers will want to buy is the challenge. This thing I learned of breakthrough with Elan, and Elan have gone through a lot of difficulties, and although Elan is a global company, it very much has its roots in Ireland. And clearly for anyone that suffers from MS, it won't need much advertising for word of mouth, for clinicians to tell patients, for patients to ask clinicians if they really feel there's a drug that's going to cure their illness or greatly alleviate their pain and suffering. And they say in business, word of mouth is very important. The hospitality industry say that all the time, and I believe it to be the case. Certainly, if you have a good experience and you tell others, that does have an impact on what other people may do. And if you have a bad experience and you relate that, it equally can have negative consequences. So in addition to the huge marketing and branding and sales programmes and the expense that can often go with that, clearly we mustn't forget the most old-fashioned tool of all, which is word of mouth and looking after the customer. And in the best companies in the world today, and indeed I think we need to do more of it in the public sector, customer service is seen as crucial, not just to a company's success, but to its sheer survival. And huge resources and research and innovation goes into making sure that companies know what the customer reaction is and what the customers might expect, and emerging trends among customers. And at a time when products are changing very rapidly, we all know how frequently the mobile phone changes. You no longer have one that's the latest and the best, then a few weeks later something else is on the market that can do even more for you. So in a world where products are being replaced at a very frequent rate, I think the key to success is making sure that we understand and know customers. And marketing, which is very different from sales, has a huge role to play in being able to anticipate and analyse what it is that the customers may want. Ireland is very dependent on global markets. Our share of world service markets now is 2%. It was 0.5% or half of 1% just 4 years ago. And the manner in which we're capturing increasing market share for services is very impressive. And it's clearly a larger share, with a larger share of world service markets than we do of world product markets. And the nature of this economy is changing very rapidly. And there's no doubt we have to move from being the manufacturer of primary products to being the innovator, to be the place where brain power determines to a large extent what happens here. And that does not mean that everybody has to be a scientist or an innovator. There's going to be jobs for many more people than that. But it does mean that we have to place a very big focus on making things happen here, because products tend to be developed very close to where they're researched and innovated. And that's where they are both served from and where they're developed. And that, I know, has been a very strong focus of the strategy both of IDA Ireland and of Enterprise Ireland with our own Indigenous sector. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to wish the conference well. I was listening this morning to the new marketing tools. As Minister for Health and Children, we've been trying to devise some strategies around the issue of suicide. We have in these islands, in Ireland, North and South, in Scotland, England and Wales, we have huge problems, particularly with young male suicide. And many of the experts that I've spoken to, and we recently launched a strategy in this area, have said, you know, the people that you're trying to get to don't read the traditional papers, they don't listen to the programmes that maybe the rest of us listen to. We've got to find new tools of trying to get messages to people where they can find help if they're in a depressed state. And in that context, a very heavy emphasis was placed on looking at the role that texting, for example, can play in getting key messages of support and assistance to young people in particular. So clearly the tools that we may use to get messages across and to get issues understood and to get responses from people are very different in a world where technology is playing an increasing part in all our lives. And I know today, with the excellent panel of speakers that you have, you will hear the perspectives of many that have succeeded. And there's nothing better than learning from those that have succeeded, who've done it before. Track record is important. And whilst I'm always a fan of pioneers and innovators, and we need more and more of them, it's always good to learn from the voice of experience, even if that was the experience of somebody like Dan, who started the company when he was a student. Indeed, Google was started by students of Stanford. So just because you're a student doesn't mean you can't have a good idea and be an entrepreneur and successfully market that idea. It doesn't just require people of a particular age with a long career of experience. There are many innovators amongst us, and I think you have assembled today a very good panel of speakers to learn from and to share your ideas with. I know this conference has been, I understand, a sellout, and I'm delighted that is the case, and that proves to me that there is a huge interest in Ireland on developing our marketing capability to make sure that we can, in that more competitive marketplace, which is becoming more globalised and where we're more interdependent on each other around this world, that we can learn the tools that can allow us to continue to succeed. And lastly, can I say, in the past, our trading experience was almost solely based on geography. Our biggest trading partner by country still remains the UK, but our second biggest trading partner by country is the United States. But today Irish companies are successfully trading into China and India, many parts of Asia. The world is the marketplace. So it's no longer based on geography or language. It's no longer just the country close by or the country that just speaks English. Our companies have to trade into markets where the culture is different, where attitudes are very different, where tastes can be very different, and where the language is very different. And I suppose the challenge for marketeers is to be able to successfully sell into those very diverse marketplaces, and that's what leads to successful enterprises and to really star and blue chip companies. So can I wish you well, and it's a pleasure to be here to open this conference.
Thank you, Taoiseach. We really appreciate your ongoing support for the Institute and the profession. Next, I want to introduce Maria Mann, who will chair this morning's sessions. Maria is the Treasurer and Vice Chair of the Marketing this year. She's also CEO of IrishJobs.ie, Scottish Jobs, Northern Jobs, and has just made an acquisition in China in the recruitment market. So she's a very busy lady, so perfectly skilled to keep us on track and on time. Maria Mann, thank you.
Thanks, Damien. Any of those of you out there who know me would be worried at this stage because I'm a brutal timekeeper, but I'm going to try my best on behalf of Damien and the conference delegates to keep this show on the road. We obviously are very eager to get to hear the speakers. I just have a few housekeeping details to go through with you first, and then we get straight into the conference. Just in terms of timekeeping, obviously what we want to do is ensure that all of our speakers have the full allocated time allotted to them, because they have a lot of very interesting insights to share with us. So the only thing that we might sacrifice today is the amount of time you have for drinking coffee. So that's when we will start to talk about. But apart from that, we'll have a full schedule in terms of speakers. Just in terms of housekeeping, if everybody could take note of the emergency exits nearest to them. Obviously, you come in on this side, but there are exits on the other side as well. As always, please turn off your mobile phones. I heard some texting at the back of the room. My name is Jane Summers, so I wait here texting at the back of the room or beeps or whatever. So if you could switch off your mobile phones now, that would be session. I'll tell you how much time you have if it changes versus what's actually on your delegate brochure. In terms of how we run the morning, or still live in your minds. Just at the morning tea and coffee break, we'll be hosting a lunch with the experts brochure, Because there are so many people here today, it is obviously on a first come first served basis in terms of what table you get to sit at. So immediately at the morning tea and coffee break, a number of competitions to do during the course of the day. The first one is sponsored by Brando and Sales Online. Brando is a new online advertising agency that was launched in the last number of months. There will be leaflets distributed during the course of the morning. You simply fill in your name and address, company name, and the draw will take place before the end of the day and the winner announced. KUKA are also running a competition with we'll talk to those guys about what they're doing, which is quite exciting, but also to learn more about the competition. There'll be a questionnaire placed on your seat during the lunch break, which is really a very important one for us, which is to get your feedback on the conference. That helps us to learn and indeed to plan for future conferences. A conference like this is not just listening to the speakers, but the networking opportunities that present themselves. So please make sure that you get a copy of that delegate list. And the other thing I've been told to say to you is that your badge cannot be taken off your jacket. There's no time limit here, so I'm not sure whether you've got to wear it for the rest of your life, but certainly for today, if you could keep that name badge on you, that would be wonderful. Mentioned our first speaker, Dan Germain, who is the creative director of Innocent. Personally, I'm very excited to hear Dan's story. As the creative director for the full advertising direction of the business, I believe he still draws and doodles, I think is the technical term for it. Innocent was established in 1998 by 3 university students, as the Taoiseach mentioned. Innocent now employs 100 people and is valued at roughly €70 million of a business. So it's a fabulous story, and Dan is going to take us through the history of that. So without further ado, can I please welcome Dan to the podium?
Hi, how are you doing? All right, quite quiet. Yeah. I I get a bit nervous about doing these things, but I just saw this lady down here drinking one of our drinks. I'm not going to make you stand up or anything, but that sort of filled my heart a little bit with gladness. But I was just wondering, actually, how many people here have actually ever drunk an innocent drink? Just a strong show of hands. Wow, that's great. And who's never ever heard of us? Who just hasn't got a clue? Great. So this is for you. That man at the table over there. I should be speaking to you for the next 30 or so minutes. So listen up. I'm going to take you through a little story about Innocent and basically how we started the business, but probably more importantly and more relevant to you guys, because the first bit's just me, plugging myself slightly. The lessons that we've learned, and I think those bits are actually, I don't know, they're the things that we've learned over the last 7 or so years, and mainly we've learned them by screwing up. And, you mess up quite a lot in business. And actually, the sort of 6 or 7 lessons that I go through there are hopefully applicable to all sorts of business. They're not just fruit juice related, which will probably gladden you if you don't work in the amazing world of fruit juice. But we'll get to those later. But first of all, just a quick bit about how we started. And we started as a group of 3 friends, Innocent, back in '98, with one idea, which was just to make life a little bit better and a little bit easier. And of course, there are many things that you could do to make this happen. The first idea we had was the amazing electric bath. And John, one of the 3 founders, a particularly lazy man, had this idea that he'd love to invent a bath that you could program, and it would run to a set temperature, set depth also, the right amount of bubble bath. Everything would be ready. We rolled out of bed at 7:30, just preset. But obviously, in trying to devise a business plan for this product, there were 2 key things that kept coming up, which was obviously the proximity of electricity and water. Didn't wash that well with potential investors. So the fruit smoothie was a slightly better idea, as we, the benefit of hindsight found. And basically for that gentleman over there, a smoothie is lots of fruit crushed up and put into a little bottle. So now you know. And it's dead healthy and good for you and all that stuff, but I shan't go on about that. Now probably, I was talking to Damien about this story earlier, and he was saying it's a great myth, and I was struggling to say, actually, it's sort of a myth, but we actually did it as well. And to test out whether smoothies would work, and whether people would actually buy them and like them, we bought a load of fruit, made some drinks, and went down to a little music festival in West London, quite close to where we were based. And it was the do or die moment, because we just had to find out if people would actually part with their cash to buy our drinks. So we put up a stall at this music festival, and they had a big banner over the top of it that said, "Do you think we should give up our day jobs?" And so behind the stall, there was lots of drinks, and a yes bin and a no bin. And people were invited over the weekend to come try the drinks and chuck their empties into the relevant bin, answer a question for us. And by the end of the weekend, as the amazing graphic shows, the yes bin was full, and the no bin had 3 bottles in it, which were received from our mothers. And that's the myth. That's the myth there, actually. But that actually just testing out the idea of our smoothies and whether they tasted good and all that stuff on the people who actually would buy them in such a direct manner has kind of informed everything we've done ever since, because we find that there are lots of things you can do in terms of marketing and market research, but there's absolute substitute for getting straight to the people who make your business possible. And so it's a theme that I'll keep coming back to, and it's something that we return to all the time when we're trying to find out what to do next. So there's a little family of juice now. There's some big cartons, there's some little kids' drinks on the far right, and there are some imaginatively named drinks, the big plastic bottles, which are a combination of water and juice, which we call juicy water, which is, that's marketing. But we have a whole family of juice now. One of the first shops where we sold our drinks was Harrods in London, because they're a bit on the pricey side, our drinks, so we thought we'd go in a posh shop first. And we actually, one of our first sort of marketing efforts was to send Mr. Fired, the proprietor of said store, an Innocent t-shirt, because he was undergoing one of his libel cases at the time. We thought that being a bit of a wild card, he might sort of come out of the court, stride down the steps and rip his shirt open and reveal the slogan, but obviously he didn't. But he sent us a nice bar of Harrods chocolate. So that was our first corporate freebie. We still have somewhere in a drawer. From Harrods to an oil rig in the middle of the North Sea is another place where our drinks are available to people who don't have access to a greengrocer. And that's probably my favourite picture in the history of Innocent. I don't know how clearly visible it is, but the guy with the green hat looks like his hat's on fire, which amuses me and only about 3 other people. And another place where we sold drinks was, anyone on a visit to London ever been to this place, the Met Bar? Quite sort of posh bar. There's usually one hand. Go on, there's somebody who's been there. Yeah, there you go. Somebody with a large expense account. So the Met Bar sort of haunt of the rich and famous, apparently. So you can get our drinks there, and then rich and famous go here afterwards. Which you might know this place as well in London, where for the recovering rich and famous, where you can also get our drinks. People have said some nice things about Innocent, and we've always loved the fact that PR is our greatest tool, and it was at the beginning because we had no cash. Therefore, PR is a great way of spreading word of mouth and all that stuff. And while that's very flattering and slightly head inflating, this is the stuff that we actually love reading more. And this is feedback from the people who actually drink our drinks. And without this stuff, we are dead, bankrupt, finished. Without knowing what these people think directly, then there's absolutely no point us going back into the kitchen and trying to develop a new recipe or come up with a new idea. Because without the knowledge of what people want. And it is all very well going and sitting in sort of one of those funny rooms that's got a one-way mirror where you look at other people and try and work out what they're doing and whether they like certain recipes, whether they like certain drinks. But actually begging on every bit of communication that we have, so begging on our labels, on our website, in advertising, for people please just email us and tell us something, even if it's holiday, just tell us what you're up to. The volume of feedback we get from people is phenomenal. I don't know, I can't remember the volume, but we just have to hire about, sort of double our consumer marketing area, our people's champions as they're better known, just because we love getting all this information, this feedback. You have to have a chart in a presentation, so here's a chart. And I'm not very good at maths, so I don't know if that's exponential, geometric, but I think it's known as a good curve, actually. But so that says about £37 million was our turnover last year, which in euros, I guess, is 50 something. And this year we've set ourselves a slightly aggressive target of about 55, 60 million. So again, we keep trying to sort of double it each year. And we just about managed to get there every year. So, setting yourselves stiff targets seems to work until everyone starts hating us, and I'll come back next year and it'll be a bad curve or something, but we'll see. So the lessons bit, so that was the boring bit. The lessons bit, and hopefully this is much more useful to you guys in terms of what you do. And probably the first lesson, and the last lesson that we return to all the time in terms of how we market our company, how we behave, how we go about developing new products, is actually just to keep the main thing. And it's a really simplistic couple of words here, but uncompromising quality. For us, that's all we can think about in terms of things. People don't buy crap stuff twice. It's a very, very insightful statement. But they tend not to. And if our drinks taste bad, or don't taste as good as the other guys, then they ain't going to get bought again. So actually ensuring that we buy the best fruit, we have the best quality ingredients, that we make sure that the combinations of the fruits are just right, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. We could be uncompromising about other stuff. We could be uncompromising about convenience, which is another massive sort of consumer desire for everything to be convenient and now. But then we probably have to start putting a few preservatives or what have you in the drinks, and they probably wouldn't taste as good, they wouldn't be as healthy. or we could be uncompromising about profit. You know, we could be there. You know, businesses want to make money, so we could be uncompromising about profit. But then we'd probably start buying slightly cheaper ingredients, and the drinks wouldn't taste as good. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of self-evident that we should be uncompromising about quality, but it's good just to have a thing to go back to, just to remind yourself every time you're developing or tasting or, you know, sampling new recipes on people, what it is that you stand for. And I like to show this picture. Has anyone ever heard of Longer Burger, the company? No? Can you guess what they do? Sorry? They make shopping baskets, yeah, as you can probably tell from the picture. And a few years ago they decided to build a really big shopping basket in Ohio in America. And you know, they could have built anything, I guess, as a corporate headquarters. They could have built one of those sort of glass boxes that you see quite often. And the fact that they actually decided in a meeting and somebody signed that off to kind of fills me with hope. You know, I've sat in lots of meetings where you know, the great ideas kind of get chipped away at until it's something that's obvious and suits everybody, and it isn't that inspiring. In fact, somebody signed it off. They built a massive shopping basket in the middle of Ohio, and now if you're going to work on a very grey Monday morning and you're you know, a Longer Burger employee, and you know, life's a bit down, and you know, everything's, you're just sort of fogged up on a Monday morning, and you see that appearing over the horizon, and then you have that epiphany. This is what I do. I do baskets. You know, if you've, I don't know. It's kind of inspiring to me, and probably if you go to their website actually, which I do frequently, there's lots of different shots of it at night and uplit against the lake. It's hopefully it won't be peculiar to me. Hopefully you go and check out longerburger.com. Okay, shopping baskets aren't the most inspiring of products, but in terms of what they've done there, I love the fact that they've made their main thing, the main thing of everything that they do. They work in their thing. Unlike these people who didn't quite get there. The second lesson is actually about caring about what you do, or having some sort of motivation beyond just the budgetary targets or whatever it is that you have in your company. And for us, it can probably be explained in a quick story that Richard, one of our founders, likes to tell. And he was going to help a friend out by picking up her kid after school because she couldn't do it. So he's there at the school gates waiting to pick up little Johnny, who's coming out across the playground. And with little Johnny is his friend little Bobby, for the sake of this story, who's quite a big lad, and he's munching on an apple. So they're coming across the playground towards Richard. And from over his shoulder he hears this cry, which is, "Get that fucking apple out of your mouth, you won't have room for your fucking chips." And, you know, my first reaction when I hear that story is to laugh, slightly nervously. It's to laugh because it's such a ridiculous thing to say that it evokes laughter. But it's pretty disgusting. It's a pretty horrible thing for a mother to say to her child. It's pretty insane. And, you know, it kind of highlights a wider point, and it's a thing that Jamie and his whole school dinner campaign has highlighted massively, more than I ever could in the UK. But the fact that there are people who are putting sort of not only bad stuff into their own bodies, but bad stuff into kids who don't know any better's bodies. Personally, anyway, it kind of upsets me a lot. And if we can do a small thing, which is to make healthy drinks, and now make healthy drinks for kids, and, you know, not life, but to make their life, you know, 0.5% better if they drink one of our drinks every so often, then for me that is a great and positive thing, and I'm happy to be doing that. I'm happy to spend 8 or 9 hours every day making sure that people get more of that stuff into their diet. So I think it's just about caring a bit about what you do, and it doesn't have to be a crusade. It just has to be something that you love doing. It could be anything. Lesson 3 is about being responsible as a company, and this is, you know, obviously corporate social responsibility is increasingly massive area, and viewed upon quite cynically quite often. But we have a very simple view of it, which is Apple's good, it's bad, which this neatly demonstrates. But business actually, in a broader sense, business is an agent of social change. You know, businesses have far more impact and reach into our lives than they ever did before. You know, a lot of your decisions in your personal life will be informed by businesses, maybe more so than they were by politics years ago. And you know, we have to accept that business has this massively important role to play in society. So for us, that means actually looking at what we're doing. This is a horrendous slide, I apologise in advance. But we have to look at all the impacts that our business has. You know, we take stuff from the earth, we take raw materials and fruit. So, you know, we're actually affecting the planet that we live on in some way. And we're affecting people in terms of how we employ them, how happy they are, how their lives are by working for Innocent, how their lives are interacting with our products. Where does all the waste go? You know, where do all the empty bottles go? Where does the waste, where do the fumes go from the lorries that drive our drinks around? We've got to analyse all of those impacts and take responsibility for all of the negative impacts, because if we didn't exist, they wouldn't be there. So part of our business responsibility is to look into every single impact that we have and try and make it, if not a positive impact, at least a neutral impact, just to make sure that there are no negative impacts in what we're doing as a business. And to us that's really important because, well, it's a no-brainer. You know, we share the planet with many billions of other people, and if we can just reduce our impact, then everyone else should take responsibility for their bit as well. So what we did as part of this, as part of trying to help people have this positive impact on people's lives, about 2 years ago we started our own charity. So it's a separate thing to the drinks business, it's a separate registered charity, and it's called the Innocent Foundation. And we put 10% of our profits every year straight into the foundation, which I read something yesterday actually, that we're in the top 10 of sort of giving companies in the UK. I don't know about Ireland, but it's a great thing. I didn't realise that we'd got to that level. You know, there are lots of companies that do make charitable donations, but by having a separate charity that focuses only on the good stuff for us, it means we concentrate on business, the charity concentrates on doing good stuff with the money that we make. The bigger we get as a business, the bigger the charity gets. I mean, again, it's a no-brainer, it's a great thing. And you know, it does make you a bit happier in the knowledge that there are people, you know, in India or Uganda or Lesotho or Brazil actually directly benefiting from the fact that we sell more drinks each year. Lesson number 4 is the lesson we only learned quite late on, because when you start business, you find yourself getting up quite early, and you find yourself working quite late, and you go home and you try and work out, how can I avoid getting up at 5 in the morning and getting home at about 11? And then you have this sort of eureka moment, which is, I can hire other people. And when that happens, it is a joyous moment. In fact, there's 2 of them at the back, and I'm just going to make them stand up and embarrass them. Pete and Kev, stand up. Pete and Kev are our chaps who run Innocent in Ireland, and they didn't stand up for long enough. I was to shame them for long. But you know, it's by finding people like Pete and Kev to actually come and work with us, and what you realise is you can hire people. Wow, they're smarter than us. They're better looking than us. They can do specific things much better than we could ever do. And your business just gets better and better the more great people you hire. And of course, the scary thing is that, God, do they like us? Are they enjoying themselves? How are we going to keep them happy? And there's a few things at Innocent that we do to try and keep people, you know, having a laugh at work. One of these is the far bottom right picture, which is Jemima holding baby Arthur. And Arthur was the first baby to be born at Innocent. In fact, well, he wasn't born at Innocent, he was born at Hammersmith Hospital, but you get the idea. So there's Happy Arthur. And funny by men, so knowledge of maternity regulations, not that good. In delving through, you know, sort of maternity leave and pay and stuff, what we figured out was that it's pretty rubbish actually in the UK. And you compare it to Scandinavia or Holland, and actually mums get a much better deal, and dads for that matter. So we have this thing now at Innocent called the baby bonus. So if you have a baby, you get £2,000. Brilliant. And it's no sort of sexist thing, because if you're a man and you have a baby, you also get £2,000. But you obviously have to stay with the lady, I heard somebody say. And we're also looking at Innocent at the moment at the first, you know, possibility, seeds of the first £4,000 baby, because we've got a couple at Innocent who are working we think on it, called Dan and Daisy. It's a different Dan. And we're looking forward to the £4,000 baby. Other things that we do, at the bottom in the middle is a picture of Rowena driving one of our grass vans, which is one of outside today actually. And it's quite a dangerous picture because I think she's failed the driving test about 14 times. And one of the things that we do was for people like Rowena who have these sort of desperate needs to do other things in their life, but that aren't necessarily work related. Actually, I started this thing called the Innocent Scholarship. So every quarter there's £1,000 that goes to the person who can stand up in front of the company and present their case to the rest of the company saying why I want £1,000. You know, one guy stood up and said that he wanted it to go off and learn how to be a UEFA qualified goalkeeping coach. So not that relevant in the world of fruit juice, but good for him. So he went off and did that. Pete at the back knew I was going to come to this. Wanted the £1,000 to renovate his tropical fish tank. Somehow we all voted to give him the money. So Pete's now got this amazing tropical fish tank in his house. I'm sure it's some sort of money laundering thing. I don't quite trust him. And people have done all sorts of stuff. And what you find is that, you know, the fish tanks and the goalkeeping coaches and Rowena going off, actually what she did was went off to do one of those sort of intense driving test things where you drive around a racing track loads of times and they give you a licence at the end of it. By doing this for people, they're just generally more rounded, happier, you know, they're just enjoying being there a bit more. It doesn't impact on their sort of core skills or whatever you want to say. But they like getting innocent better and they stay and people work harder when they're happier and all that stuff. It's great. And probably the last picture that I'll talk about actually is the bottom left, and that's Louise with the rosette and the sash. She's just become Lady of the Sash, which is a sort of employee of the month type thing, like your 5 stars at McDonald's on your badge award. And the Lord and Lady of the Sash, there's one a month, are voted by everyone else at work for doing the best job. And the Lord gets a top hat and a sort of sash thing. The lady gets a tiara, and if they've got their top hat or tiara on any time the following month, you know, you've got to make them tea or clean their shoes or whatever. But the worst thing about it is that you have to, when they win, you have to get down in front of them, and you know, so you've got the whole company down in front of you, bowing and scraping in front of you. And actually, what we found is that people don't really like that, so they've stopped trying that hard to win it. So there's a fundamental flaw in the process somewhere. But anyway, that's about people. And I don't know. I can't stress enough. We're 100 people now. We're trying to hire about 40 more at the moment. But what we've actually found in terms of hiring people is that we're really particular. We're really fussy. I heard a guy say this. He's the head of talent, responsible for getting people to come and work at Apple. So you think, quite an easy job, quite a nice company to go and work for. But actually, they're fastidious about who they get in, because if you hire the bad apple, and that is no pun intended, if you get the bad apple, not only does that person maybe not enjoy themselves and not do the job that they were, you know, hired to do, but then the people all around them start moaning and not working as hard as they could. And I don't really like him, it's a bit rubbish, and I'm going to do that for him. You know, all that sort of sniping. And to be honest, in a small company, you haven't got any time or space or anything for that. So hiring the right person and waiting and waiting and waiting and interviewing and interviewing and interviewing to get the right person is absolutely crucial. It's absolutely crucial. So we have this sort of, you know, no asshole policy at Innocent, which I don't know if it's working. I haven't checked recently. Lesson 5. We're nearly there. Lesson system. And it's quite difficult to sort of analyse post the event, but we have a tone and we have a way of speaking to people in terms of our marketing skills, and when we talk to the people who drink our drinks. And it's, you know, it's how we speak to our mums, it's how we speak to our friends. It isn't a voice that we invented to do business, and it isn't a voice that somebody else told us we should have when we were selling stuff or engaging with the consumer or any of that stuff. And as I said, it's just having a chat. So it's a chat on our labels, in that little space on the side where we could bore you to tears with your statutory rights, whatever they are. Does anyone here have any statutory rights? I mean, I don't really know what they are, so I don't know why they're on lots of labels, but, you know, I'd rather talk to somebody about something that interests them rather than their statutory rights. Or the way that we talk to people on our phone, which is the sort of conduit for anyone who calls into Innocent. You know, and there's Rowena now out of the car happily and on the phone. And if you phone, you get to speak to Rowena or Erin or any of the people that are there to pick up the banana phone and have a chat with you about anything. And on the labels it says, you know, if you're bored, give us a ring. And you do get, you do get a few odd calls. And actually on the labels it also says if you pass by office, pop in. And that's where it gets really risky. Because we had a bloke actually who was convinced that he had these magic blueberries that he'd found in the woods, and he slept outside in a van for about 5 nights, and he'd come to the office every morning and try and show us the magic blueberries. So quite worrying, but you know, he definitely had a right to be there. We had asked him to come over, he just stayed a bit longer than we thought. And it's great, but it's great when people do come in and they go, oh, we just came to have a look round. And, you know, you share a drink with them, show them round. They're usually quite underwhelmed because they're expecting a sort of Willy Wonka styled place, and there's quite a few people sitting around on computers, you know. But hey, they seem to enjoy it. One bloke came the other week with he had an innocent tattoo, a real innocent tattoo on his arm. He'd come all the way from Norfolk to show us that, and that's definitely worrying. But anyway. And our tone goes through, and it sort of carries through to our vehicles as well, somehow. I'm not quite figured out the connection, but we have these big dancing brassy vans that have hydraulic wheel suspension things, so they dance around. And we have the cow vans that have horns and proper udders and tails and a button that you press on the dashboard that goes which is great for scaring tourists in London. No, sorry, it's a great marketing tool, I mean. But anyway, it's just all the little bits where you can make a difference in terms of marketing. We could have had a fleet of fairly standard liveried vans with our logo down the side, but for a few pounds more, we whacked some grass or whacked a bit of black paint on the side, turn them into cows and grass, and suddenly you've got something that makes people stop and want to find out a bit more about what you do. It's just simple stuff. Taking care of the details. So once you've done all that big stuff, you know, once you've kind of kept the main thing, and you've got the right people in to work with you, you've worked out how you're going to speak to people, you've got your tone set up. There are just all the little places, as I was just saying, where you can really tweak things. And an example of this for us was saying enjoy by on the labels. And in the UK, you've got to say best before or use by is the one that gets me. It's like, how do you use fruit juice? You know, I don't use it. I'm not a fruit juice user. I drink it. I enjoy it. So why don't we just talk to people in the language that they use themselves? Why don't we just say enjoy by? And there you get the trading standards people, obviously not particularly enjoying the fact that you might be breaking a rule or something. So then you start getting quite long letters from trading standards, and rightly so. You know, they've got to enforce and uphold the standards. But obviously, the only thing you can really do when you get a really long, complicated letter is write an even longer, more complicated letter back. So you sort of very long letter back, and then you get a massive letter back in return, and maybe, you know, what the hey, write a really double massive letter back, and you know, you play this letter tennis for a while, and then it stops, and you realise that the training standards people have probably gone off to do something slightly more important, like, you know, take rat poison out of kids' food, or whatever the issue du jour is. And the fact that we have enjoy by on there is I should say that we have a very good relationship with our training standards officer now. I'm never quite sure if he or she is going to be sitting in an audio relationship, honest. But saying enjoy by is just something, it's a tiny little detail, and it's just talking to people in the language that they use every day. And nobody has ever got in touch with us and said, you know, I'm going to stop drinking your drinks because you say enjoy by, I don't understand what you're on about. And, you know, that's pretty simple. So details, you know, details are very important. It's too easy to pick on him, but I do like that picture. This is the final lesson, and it's just about opening yourself up to the world and to the people who make your business possible. And for us, it goes right back to the start. It goes back to the music festival where we asked people whether we should start this business or not. You know, and that decision made us go and resign from our day jobs. You know, it's literally that connection that we have with the people who drink our drinks and make the business possible. And so we thought that you know, we started off at a festival. It'd be quite nice to have another festival, or at least to get all of these people together, all of these innocent folks who make the business what it is, all the drinkers, and say, cheers, and do you fancy coming down to the park, and we'll have a bit of a do. And they all did. And the first year we did Fruit Stock, as it's known, which is our little free festival that we have in the park in London. 40,000 people came, and that's pretty scary. And it was really hot, and we didn't have any parasols, and everyone almost died from sunburn. So we learned. The next year we bought a lot of parasols. But the next year 100,000 people came, so we didn't have enough parasols. But we had some bands, and we had a beer tent, and we had, you know, the basics needed for a good festival. And we did it for the third time last year. We had about 120,000 people come, and it's become a bit of an institution, and it is just our way of saying thanks. You know, we lose a ton of money on it, but we get to say to people who drink our drinks, come to the park, we'll have a good time, and, you know, just drinking the drinks over the last year, making everything possible. And it's really simple, really, you know, it's a direct connection with the people who make our business possible. And I think now, if I press this button, there will be a short film about Fruit Stock you can look at and see what it's like for yourselves. If you're in London on the 5th and 6th of August, it'd be lovely if you come. It's free, which is the best thing. And this is the final slide that I'm going to leave you with, which is just probably the best bit of business, direct consumer advice I've ever read. And, you know, I implore you to take heed and to listen to the people who make your businesses possible, whenever and wherever you can. It's a great way of testing people's reading speed as well. But I'll leave you now. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
Insightful and also very entertaining, which is always good first thing in the morning. This is the question and answer section of the morning. We have about 5 or 10 minutes to take any questions anybody on the floor might have for Dan. We have 2 roving mics, and we have a question just here in the middle. You might just give us your name and your company.
My name is Gavin Downs, and I work in O2. Dan, my question to you is just in relation to tone of voice, which is something that's very strong that Innocent have. Who in Innocent is responsible for that, and how do you maintain that consistency across your communications?
Well, that's my job, to be honest, and I'm the copywriter, so I write the stuff that we do. But it comes. What I've started doing actually is running little writing courses inside Innocent. And they're pretty haphazard because I run them. But actually just trying to work out what it is and how we sound, and just encouraging other people to have a go at writing. So now there are other people in Innocent who are writing the labels or writing bits of copy all over the place. In terms of how we ensure it remains consistent, I guess with, you know, my shambolic training efforts probably help out slightly. I think also trying to keep people at the company for a long time. That whole thing of talking about keeping people happy and engaged and involved, because the longer people spend Innocent, the more innocent they become, and the more confident they'll be in actually writing that stuff and making it as well. So I think it's about, you know, maintaining a sort of relaxed and informal air in the company in general, but that seems to happen by itself anyway.
And if I was just asked about, say, a couple of words that would describe, you know, Innocent tone of voice, what would you say? I'd
probably say natural, because it is the way we speak normally. It isn't a forced thing. Honest, you know, we tell when we screw up as well as when we do good stuff, and it has to be engaging. You have to reward people for taking it. I mean, people are stopping to read small print on the side of a bottle label. You've got to give them something back. You know, you just can't expect them to sit there and read it, and then, you know, because they're moments of people's lives that you're stealing, so at least give them something back.
Thanks.
Another question just right beside there. Literally just there's the girl in the white jumper right in front of you. Thanks.
Hello, Emily Delahanty from Cleary's department store. There was a noticeable increase in the sales sales from 2004 to 2005. Is that particularly attributable, do you feel, to your TV campaign, or was there a number of factors on the basis of that success?
Probably a few things. We did start advertising a little more in 2004, although the TV bit only came right at the end of the year, so it probably didn't impact that much. We launched the bigger 1 litre cartons in 2004, so I think there was an impact there. I just think there's a general groundswell, definitely in the UK and Ireland as well, in terms of awareness about health and what you put into your body. And I think we'd reached a little point where people would start to notice us and associate us with some sort of relaxed yet healthy lifestyle, probably, and start buying it. You should ask Pete and Kevin, because they probably have a better idea of it than me.
Questions?
Yep.
Hi.
Hi.
Margaret O'Brien from Opal. I love what you're doing. It's great. Part of the audience that you have is probably people who are very environmentally aware and aware of what's going into their bodies. And one of the things that I noticed recently is that people, there's a kind of a lobbying group there of trying to get us to eat food that's produced close to home. And I know some of the ingredients that you use are probably not produced close to home. How are you planning on dealing with that lobby move forward? Because I think it's something that's going to grow over the next few years. We have to become aware of the impact on the environment of us shipping in blueberries and Brazilian oranges. So is that something that you're thinking of?
Oh, we are massively aware of that stuff. And in fact, we're probably 20% better than we were a few years ago, but we're still pretty useless, to be perfectly honest. What we have done, we've cut out air freighting, which is the #1 contributor in terms of environmental damage of shifting food and drink around. And we used to have quite a lot of stuff air freighted, so exotic foods from exotic lands, but we've just taken the decision to stop doing that because it's immediately cut out, 60 or 70% of the emissions that we're responsible for. And going forward, we're just looking to source more local products all the time. It's quite difficult when one of your biggest selling recipes has mangoes and passion fruits in it, because they just don't grow in Shepherd's Bush. But we're definitely aware of it. We've got a massive... I don't like talking about it actually, because I don't like talking about it until we've done it, until it's good and it's done. But it's an ongoing process of trying to... It's that horrible chart I showed about trying to make sure all of the impacts, we know what they are and that we can try and change them once we know what they are. So we're probably still in the stage of identifying all of the impacts that we have and working out how we make them better. But that's a great question.